It's the one and only 5D Transformations, and I'm back. And in this video, I wanted to talk about something very interesting, which is MBTI. You know, I love MBTI. We got the MBTI Magic course out now, where you learn about all the different personality types. You learn about MBTI, the spiritual aspect of MBTI, how it connects with the four elements. And then you learn about each type superpower, and their hidden gift. So check that out. It's on the Patreon, $50 to access it on there. That's where I have all my courses available for just $50 a month. You have access to all the courses. With that being said, in this video, let's talk about MBTI and introverted thinking versus introverted feeling. Now, one thing you got to understand, you're using one or the other as your basis of judging. So let's say you have introverted thinking. That means whatever you're thinking is taking precedent as the anchor for what you think should be done. Now, you may be feeling something at the same time, but because you're so locked in on the thought, you actually aren't able to, you're not really putting your awareness on the feeling as much because your awareness is on the thought. Your awareness can only be on one thing at a time. So it's going to be on the thinking. So while that's going on, your feeling is dormant. So this is how you kind of condition, and we condition ourselves over time, where our habit is to move toward how we think, where people could say, oh, you seem emotionless, or, why are you blah, blah, blah. Like, you might find yourself in situations where people can say you're insensitive or you're not taking the feeling into account. But a lot of that reason isn't because you're just innately being mean or selfish. Just because you're so locked into the thought, you don't have access to the feeling as easily. Now let's switch over to introverted feeling. If you have introverted feeling dominant, you're tapped into how you feel. And that is playing a role in the judgment of the experience. That's where your awareness is. You're like, man, I feel kind of like, how do I feel right now? And while that's going on, the introverted thinking isn't taking place. There is no thinking necessarily as much because you're feeling, trying to figure out what you're feeling. Now, that, while your awareness is on your feeling, your introverted thinking isn't being accessed as much. So this is where people become feelers more so, because of that dynamic. Now let's go a little deeper. So now if you're an introverted feeler and you're tapped into your feeling and not the introverted thinking, well, what's going on while you're feeling everything? Well, you're saying, okay, what am I feeling? What does this mean? This is where extroverted thinking comes into play. Because with extroverted thinking, it's responsive. It's listening and trying to figure out what the group is saying or what something is saying. Introverted thinking, on the other hand, is going with the first thought. It's going with whatever it thinks, right? It's following a linear pattern of, all right, what is going on with this, with that? What do I think about this? What do I think about that? Whereas extroverted thinking is different because it's not going, what do I think about this and that? It's going, what am I feeling right now? Or what is going on? Like, it's trying to figure out, based on its feeling, what is going on. So it's much more receptive. So it might want to say, all right, let me pay attention to the environment and see what people are thinking to get a better idea of how to feel, because I don't really know what's going on. Or I'm trying to tap in that. If I feel good, it's because, I must feel good because there's people around, there's good conversations. So you see, the logic is more so based on the objective environment. It's more so creating logic that's picking up off of what is going on, which makes it more of a reactive type of thinking, because you feel first and then you put it all together. Oh, I feel this way because of this. Oh, I feel this way because of that. So extroverted thinking is kind of shortcutting, because it's not using introverted thinking, which is a lot more of a linear form of thinking. You go from here to there to there. Extroverted thinking has its emotions in the way at times. So then when it finally figures out what's going on, it shortcuts. Oh, this is all happening because of this. Boom. It's efficiency. So it has to come up with ways to think efficient, because it's not all the time sticking to the logical form of thinking, because its feelings can get in the way. See, when you have introverted feeling, you have to account for what you think and what you feel. People who have introverted feeling, you have a certain connection with the energy in your body. So let's say a certain situation happens, you're very sensitive to the environment in terms of how you feel relative to the environment. It's always the environment's out here, and this is how I feel, and I'm matching with the environment, or I'm going into the environment, and it could be a clash or it could be a good fit, but that's always being taken into account as an introverted feeler, because you're so connected with how you feel that you know it can kind of feel a little bit disconnected from the group. Whereas if you have introverted thinking, right? As an introverted thinker, they have extroverted feeling, meaning if you are an introverted thinker, you're not going in wondering how you feel. You're going in thinking, all right, let me go in here. I got to do this. All right, this person's there. I should probably do this and say hi. Or everything is very much a thought. So you're not really connected with the feeling of how you feel. You're more so focused on the outside group and how they feel. You're trying to blend in. You're trying to, okay, let me do X, Y, Z logically so that I fit with the group. Introverted feeling goes in and says, I feel kind of like, let me see how I feel and try to just keep my feeling intact amongst this group, So introverted thinkers are much more willing to let go of how they feel and more so try to figure out the feeling of the group, because they're logical, right? I'm going into a new environment. Let me figure out what the group is doing so I can blend, right? In certain cases. Or they'll go in there and, generally they just go with their first thought, you know what I mean? And go out there, whatever, do what they want to do. But the feeling isn't as big of a role. Whereas with an introverted feeler, they're going in with a preset feeling already, trying to manage that throughout the group. So you got A types and you got, B types. Your A types that are going to be introverted thinkers are going to go in, they're going to say what they think. They're going to, oh, what's good? Blah, boom, boom. How you doing? Blah, blah, yeah, boom. The introverted thinkers going, right? They're just saying what they think. They're sharing their opinions. They're sharing their views on things, and they interact that way. Then you got your B type introverted thinkers that are much more quiet, right? Or those might be your introverts. So they go into the environment and they could be to themselves, you know what I mean? But they'd be very logical. So a lot of time those people, they'll be cut off from the feeling of the environment. They're not super emotive. They're kind of just, there. You have a conversation with them, they tell you what they think, everything like that. But they can be more reserved, you know what I mean? But what you'll notice with both types, mainly though with the introverted thinking type, is you normally see them a little bit more stoic because they're not as connected with their feeling. They're very much up here versus like down here. They're very much in their head. So you can see them looking a little disconnected. They could just stare straight with, not really showing them much emotion. That's a lot of time you could tell they may be an introverted thinker or a thinker dominant. You know what I mean? Not expressing that much emotion. Then you might see a feeler, right? So now let's go to the feelers. If you see more of somebody who's extroverted, but they have introverted feeling, you'll notice they come with their own vibration, but they'll be sociable, they'll be communicative, they'll be fun, playful, they'll be more in the feeling. So you might talk to them and end up in a laugh about something, or they might have a certain energy that you can sense off of them. They generally have a very light energy, a lot of fun, playful, like soft, not very abrasive energy, right? Because they're not leading with thoughts, which can be opinionated. They're leading with a vibration and a feeling, and they're just flowing, right? And that's how more your extroverted people are that have introverted feeling. Then you have your people who are introverted that have introverted feeling, and they'll be more so quiet. But what you'll notice about them, though, is they won't look as much in their head. They'll look like they're more in their body. So you'll see them kind of like, they might be sitting in a corner. You see them, they might smile, say hi, but they are very much, you could sense they're more in their body than their head. You might notice they're more emotive. They're more kind of, I'm not going to say friendly, but they're more, easier to initially talk to, or come off that way because they have kind of like a softer vibration generally. So these are the things you look for between introverted thinking and introverted feeling when you're looking at types. Now, keep in mind, introverted thinkers can come off like introverted feelers at times, and introverted feelers can come off like introverted thinkers, right? So what you want to do, is more so pay attention to the communication, you know what I mean, and the energy. Try to really pay attention to the energy. When you see people, do they give off more emotive feeling, or do they seem more like they're in their head or a little more closed off, right? That's how you can tell the difference. Also, when someone comes in the environment, do they just rip off saying what they think? Like, are they free to say what they think? That might be an introverted thinker. Or do they come in and they're more like uh, passive with the environment, and they're more so interested in what other people think? So they might want to hear what you think, or they might be quiet listening to other people more so. That might be an introverted feeler. Introverted feelers are much more, because they have extroverted thinking paired, they're much more open to hearing what people have to say, because that's how they gather data and come up with their own thinking abilities and become smarter and smarter by gathering more thoughts. Whereas introverted thinkers, they more so prefer to have their original thought, and they prefer to just enjoy the vibe and fun and friendliness of people's vibration around them. But it's less about hearing what people think. It's more about being playful, because they're more so, they're more so sharing what they think in a lot of cases for introverted thinkers. Or they can be very, introverted thinkers are receptive with extroverted feeling, but they are the things that they do think are correct, they are very solid about that. They're less wavery than an introverted feeler. Unless we're talking about an introverted feeler's values, something that they value very deeply, introverted feelers will generally hold their ground on that. But when it comes to people's perspectives and certain things, they generally are more flexible than introverted thinkers. Introverted thinkers a lot of time can really lock in on a thought, and it can be hard to convince them to think otherwise if they really believe in whatever it is that they're thinking. So keep that in mind, man. So that's some MBTI game right there. Make sure to tap in. Make sure to check out the MBTI Magic course. It's an incredible course. MBTI is a science that'll really blow your mind. It's one of the greatest sciences I've come across. The people I work with and show it to them, it always opens up insights. It's just such a powerful science, and I recommend you guys delving in. Aside from that, I'll see you all in the next video, man. It's the one and only 5D Transformations. Peace.